Bismillah Rahman Rahim. Welcome to another very special episode of Grassroots Cricket. I am very, very happy and very, very excited to be joined by my friend, my brother from India today. I'm going to just give you a very brief introduction. And it's a brief introduction, which is a very fun and long introduction because this is a guy who's achieved a lot in his life. So my guest today is Pablo Chaterji, who is a trained filmmaker and found himself in journalism somewhat by accident in 2003 when he quit the world of advertising.
Yes, indeed.
Since then, he has been in automotive and lifestyle journalism, which has allowed him to drive cars, ride motorcycles, take photographs, travel the world for a living, something that causes his friends and blood relatives alike to swear at him. I will soon be joining that list because every time I see him testing out a new car or traveling to some amazing place, mere dil ke andar se nikalti. I'm not at the stage yet where I'm openly swearing at him. And in his 18-year career so far, he has done road testing and writing about cars and two-wheelers. He's written road trip-based travel stories. He's done automotive, street and travel photography. And he's done sports, technology, food, popular culture, and fashion writing. And it doesn't end there, folks. It still keeps going on. In his spare time, Pablo plays self-taught blues guitar. He believes he's good at it. I'm going to have to hear it from other people. He's a diehard fan of the blues and jazz and would have been a failed musician, but he chose to be a successful journalist instead. And he's a very keen student of cinema. He can watch up to 5 films a day, so he'll be right at home in Pakistan amongst Pakistanis, because that's what we love to do. Former wicketkeeper and batsman and part-time off-spinner, so he's giving me some strong MS Dhoni vibes over here. Maybe just the hair is different. And although he's definitely not an expert, he's a very knowledgeable student of the game. And finally, he'd like to add that every now and then he cooks. Nobody's been hospitalized, so he plans to keep doing it. So what a way to introduce you, Pablo ji. Sabse pehle, namaste, welcome. Thank you for taking the time out to talk to Cricket Mehfil today.
Namaste ji. Not at all. It's my pleasure. As I said, we have known each other 5 or 6 years now, and this is the first time that we're actually having a face-to-face conversation. So I think that's absolutely wonderful.
It just shows you what cricket can do when it comes to desis, right? It just finds a way to make us connect with each other, talk about things. Cricket, when you talk about cricket and the world talks about cricket, some people talk about England and Australia, some people talk about the West Indies, but cricket if you look at cricket as we say in Pakistan as a junoon, I don't think it gets any better than India, Pakistan, and now I would definitely add Bangladesh and Sri Lanka to that. And now, of course, Nepal, Afghanistan. This is the most cricket-obsessed region in the world.
It is indeed. Afghanistan is doing very well for itself. As you've seen recently, they've put it over Zimbabwe. And, of course, Pakistan has had a big role to play in that, didn't you? Because a lot of training happened there. They lived there. So that's wonderful to see. I mean, Rashid Khan, what a player. It's hard to think of any other, especially in the T20 scene, of any other player who's more exciting to watch in terms of a bowler. So yes, cricket for me, India, Pakistan, certainly my generation. I was born in the late 70s, so I grew up among the generation that just got used to getting hammered by your lot all the time, which was always hard to swallow. But despite that, it was just so good and so enriching to watch all these encounters and watch greats like Imran Khan, Wasim Akram, Javed Miandad, people like that. Even though it was an extremely love-hate relationship, but it was a very unique one. As you pointed out earlier, it's the love-hate part is, I think, the most important thing here, because no matter how much you cursed the opposite side and wished for them to lose, you had no option really but to just be enthralled by the level of skill on display. So I think you're right. For me, the word cricket conjures up visions of great Indian and Pakistani cricketers just going hammer and tongs at it.
And we saw the two sides didn't really play each other a lot, but when they did, the cricket, like you said, was always electrifying. Sharjah was the one place where we'd get together and play. and Pakistan would
Yeah.
win, but then India would take revenge at the World Cups. Whichever World Cup it
Right.
was, doesn't matter what happened. India would say, "ठीक है
Yeah.
भाई, Sharjah
We would
mein
win.
you can win. World Cup mein we will
Huh.
win." Sort of went that way, and then we saw. Correct me if I'm wrong, but we saw a mindset change at around the time that Ganguly took over the captaincy. We saw a very aggressive India. And a lot of people, I remember, a lot of journalists and experts at the time saying, and Pakistanis took this both with a pinch of salt when his team would come here and beat us there, but also took it very happily. They said Ganguly was a very Pakistani kind of player. He was very aggressive. He wasn't as meek as some had been. Do you think it's fair to give him the credit for changing the mindset? He did have an exceptional side, but India have always had an exceptional side. They've always had. If you go back, most Pakistani legends will tell you that no better batsman has played the game than Sunil Gavaskar. Whether it's Imran Khan,
Right.
Wasim Akram, the late Abdul Qadir, they all said Gavaskar was as good as it got. Of course, 83, India won the World Cup, the first Asian side to. So they always had a good team. But do you think Ganguly did bring, as a fan, did you think he did bring a mindset change? India stopped being slightly, being pushovers. They started competing away from home. They started taking Australia on in Australia, South Africa in South Africa, England in England. They won in England a couple of times under both Dravid and Ganguly, where everybody used to say a seaming ball, so India is not going to win it. Was he responsible, or was it just, or was it a generational change that just he happened to be there and be part of?
I think it's a combination of the two things you just said. One, Ganguly himself comes from a very privileged background, and so he's used to having his way. He's comes, like I said, he's his family in Calcutta is a very well known family. That's long and sort of established family. Grew up as a privileged kid, and indeed, when he was first chosen, when he was selected, I think toured Australia, didn't do very well. I think this was 1992.
Just played
Precisely
one game.
because of the fact I think that his attitude stood out. People, not just the team, but fans thought that he had too much attitude. That he was snooty. But in the end, I think that for him, because 8 years hence, when he, not even 8 years, like he was
4
selected,
years,
I think the test
96.
team in 96, when he reeled off those centuries in England. I think it became very clear that here's a guy who really doesn't care what others think about him. And he very much marches to his own tune, and was immediately marked out as captaincy material because the world was changing. And I think even the administrators at the time realized that at some point they were going to have to put in place someone who took no nonsense. And Ganguly was just that. So when he did take over at the turn of the millennium, in fact, I think what happened was that he was very much his own man, and he managed to he didn't take any nonsense even from the board, which was at that time unheard of because most of the captains were quite sort of malleable, and Ganguly didn't care about what others thought, and he got his way with the board, and therefore he decided that youth was where it was at. Hence Zahir Khan, Yuvraj Singh, who all got their starts under him, and he pushed talent, and he made sure that that talent was always backed. So I think it coincided with a time when a lot of this talent began coming through. There was a time in Indian cricket when it was largely players from Karnataka or from Mumbai who would form the bulk of the team. But as time passed, there were younger kids from other parts of the country who would not normally have gotten a chance. And Ganguly helped that process. So it was a sort of amalgamation of two quite unique and separate things. One was Ganguly and his force of character, and of course his undeniable talent. I mean, he was a fantastic batsman as well.
Absolutely.
So he deserved his place. But I think he realized that a generational change and an attitudinal change was required, and he put that in place. So it was a combination of both, for sure.
And we saw him get under the skin of other captains. We saw him, with
Steve
disdain
Waugh.
For Steve Waugh and others who, to an extent, almost worshipped in India. It's a very important point I'd like to ask you, because a lot of people don't realize, tactically, Sachin Tendulkar was a very good captain. he knew the game as well as anybody. His own performances didn't suffer, but maybe he wasn't able to communicate it to the players. Ganguly, like you said, the communication was clear. He had the likes of Tendulkar and Dravid who were very happy with his captaincy. Nobody saw, any grumbles or anything. He brought through young players who went on to make a difference. Zahir Khan, Harbhajan Singh credits his career to him, Yuvraj Singh, MS Dhoni. And like you said, he started focusing on youth. He said the younger guys have to come across. You made a very good point about players coming through from other regions, Pablo. We in Pakistan have 5 regions. India is much, much larger country. There's so much more. So what has been the change that has seen? If I'm not wrong, MS Dhoni is one of very few cricketers from Ranchi or the Jharkhand area.
Right.
There weren't that many before.
Ishan Kishan is another one now.
Now you've got a Dhoni clone coming from the same area, a boy inspired by Dhoni, winning multiple IPLs, come on his debut on an absolutely awful track. He made it look like a practice wicket. The guy was hitting sixes for fun. So this fearlessness has come into Indian cricket that wasn't really there before. If anything, people would say Pakistanis were seen as being fearless because in our culture, it's street cricket and, hitting T20, playing T20 style games is very common. So now that you're seeing all these young players coming from other regions, has the board worked a lot to make sure that this net has now grown? Is there a better system in place for recognizing these guys and then giving them opportunities? Because in the past, we would say, you'd be familiar with this, the MRF Foundation would unearth a bowler or two every once in a while. That was a private enterprise as opposed to something run by the board. What is it now that you're able to spot this talent? Is it the IPL, or has the board put more in place with regards to first-class cricket that you're not only spotting the talent, but you're also bringing it to the fore and they look ready when they come out to play?
Again, there's several answers to this question. One is that really, I think this attitudinal change did begin with Ganguly. And what happened was the board began to see the results of that change in attitude and of the way that the Indian team began playing. I mean, we still got hammered. We got, as every team does, we got smashed in the 2003 World Cup final and so on. We got hammered when we went to New Zealand. So we did keep getting beaten. But I think what happened was that the level of resilience kept going up. And then, of course, when the IPL came along, what happened there was a lot of young kids realized that this was their ticket, certainly out of their small hometowns, because this is India, everyone wants to be a cricketer, and suddenly there was a way to do it. And if they were good enough and or lucky enough to actually get into an IPL team, as a lot of them did, then what happened was that they were able to play alongside legends from all over the world that they had looked up to. And what that did was that it made them less. They were not intimidated in the way that they were anymore, because they were literally living alongside these guys. And you can see the results of that happening now, because guys like Mohammad Siraj, Natarajan, who all plied their trade and learned the tricks of the trade in really the IPL. Because they're so used to playing alongside the best in the world, these occasions don't really faze them in the way that they used to do to the younger generation, to the previous generation. And the board saw that as well. And what has also happened is that domestic cricket has been, although currently the Ranji Trophy has not been given the sort of importance that it has been given in the past. There's more of the shorter formats that are now being given more importance, the T20s and the one-day matches. But it is true that because of the IPL, the board became even richer than it already was, and it was able to put money into different districts, into academies, hire the best people, and the results of that are showing now. So it's like a little cauldron with different ingredients in it. And a generational change is definitely part of the reason that all of this is happening, because these young guys now, like I said, and as we've discussed before, they're fearless. I mean, they don't fear failure. Look at the way Ishan Kishan batted. That was his first international innings, and he hit his first ball for four. And 2 days later, Suryakumar Yadav hits his first ball for six. That kind of thing would never have happened, even 7 or 8 years ago, with most Indian cricketers. So it's
because
yeah, it's been
because
a number of factors.
there would be a fear that if you get caught out, then you won't play
Yeah,
again. Or there would be a fear that,
exactly.
if you fail, where these guys are going in, A, they back their ability, obviously, but B, also they're being backed
Yeah,
by the board, by the coaches, by
yeah,
other people. You mentioned a very good point about the IPL. It's very possible, I think it's very possible that but for the IPL, you might not have found someone like Bumrah, who is a very unique player. He's almost like a
absolutely.
Malinga or someone like that. And now I don't think any one of us thought he would be as successful in Test cricket as he ended up being, because
Correct.
he seemed tailor-made
That's
for the shorter
exactly
format.
right.
But he's dominated Test cricket and taken really dead wickets out of the equation. And now it's changed to the point where once Pakistanis would sit there and boast about our fast bowling, you all now currently have an exceptional roster of young fast bowlers. One could say that
That's
again,
right.
maybe it started with Irfan, and I mean, we all make fun of Ishant Sharma, but he's closing in on 400 Test wickets. That's a lot of hard work.
Yeah,
Doesn't matter, and especially when
yeah,
you consider that he's played the vast majority of his career on unresponsive wickets, and he debuted as an
correct.
18-year-old. He's done it. Bumrah is doing
That's
it.
right.
Siraj has come in. Shami, I know there
Yeah,
was talk about once upon a time, that is Shami good enough? Well, he's become a one-day enforcer for Team India. He's a Test match
yeah. And
specialist,
Test match, second innings, amazing bowler. Yeah,
and then you have Yadav, you have Arun Varun. So clearly, it's all come through, like you said, with this system and the board. There's a lot for other countries to learn in there, because it's so
there
much
is.
harder with
Yeah,
such a massive country. It's not like you're managing a
right,
population of a few hundred million. You're managing a population of a billion plus, where everybody thinks he
yeah,
can be the next Sachin Tendulkar. We have that problem in
yeah,
Pakistan, where everybody thinks he is the next Imran Khan. So managing it
right,
also, and then of course, the more successful you are, the more the pressure increases. And of course, we saw India,
right.
what's the correct word, dil pe patthar rakh ke, stone on heart, go on to win the World T20, then they go on to win the World Cup and the Champions Trophy under Dhoni then took it to another level, because Dhoni had absolute belief in himself, in his methods,
Yeah,
in his team. But Dhoni also, from a small town boy, became, I think it is absolutely no doubt to say, the greatest one day finisher. And the great, I mean, for me, mostly it would have been the greatest wicketkeeper till Dhoni started being successful, would have been Adam Gilchrist. But I think you have to
yeah.
say that in every single all time one day in T20 11, Dhoni's there. You cannot have a
Going to be
one
known.
day or a
Yeah,
T20 team
yeah,
without Dhoni as a
absolutely.
finisher, as a wicket keeper, and as a captain. So
Yeah.
he then took Team India to other heights. What do you think it was as a fan? What was it like watching a boy from? I'm guessing a relatively smaller part of India. I'm not very familiar with the geography of Jharkhand and those areas, but from Ranchi, a small town, this guy comes in and becomes the best player in
Very
your
much a small
history.
town.
So he's gone on to become
Very
your
much a small
greatest
town.
captain.
It was fascinating to watch. When he first announced himself, just as a player, and he hit that amazing 180. What is it?
Three
184, and then
183 versus
yeah,
Sri Lanka. Yeah,
183. Yeah, and then 148. I think was it against
as Pakistan,
I forget
second
what.
one
Yeah,
day. Yeah,
against you guys. Yeah.
yeah.
It firstly it was enthralling to watch. I mean, nobody had seen anything quite like it. Um, and I remember watching those games and thinking at that time, other than being blown away, the interesting sociological phenomenon was, here is this guy that really nobody's ever heard of, unless you were very closely following domestic cricket, where he was making a name for himself, and in sort of completely unknown tournaments that he was playing for money, where he was smashing every ball. He it was it was just interesting to see how somebody like that burst onto the scene, um, and was immediately taken to heart by the entire country. And you could just, sometimes you have this gut feeling when you can tell that this is not a one-off. Sometimes you have guys who make you, and it's a freak one-off performance. But with Dhoni, you could just tell that this guy is the goods. He's going to be around for a while, which of course turned out to be true. And soon he was leading the team, won his first world trophy. So it was amazing to watch. And I think what Dhoni did was to just make you believe, just as an Indian fan, that nothing was ever, no game was ever lost.
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
as long as he was around, there was always a chance. And that it panned out like that on several occasions, where like he would, just take the chase till the last possible over 15 to get, and he would finish it in like 3 hits.
yeah,
So just to see that analytical brain at work, because even when you were watching it on television, it was almost like you could see these, the gears in his brain working in some sort of a weird 3D visual. And
yeah.
that was so fascinating to see. It was the first time that certainly that I had seen someone work like that, and also give no impression whatsoever that he was feeling any kind of pressure. So
Absolutely.
often you would think like, what is this guy? Some kind of cyborg? Because there was devastation all around him sometimes, and it looked like all was lost. But he was out there without a care in the world, or seemingly without a care in the world, and he was just doing what he needed to do. So I think Dhoni is. I don't think we'll ever see anybody like him again. He's definitely a one-off, and his contribution to Indian cricket, I think, is absolutely immense. I mean, in the sense of the belief that he installed in not only in the team but just in the entire country, that what, chill out, I've got this. That I think has now been sort of taken up by the rest of the players. Like, almost every player in the Indian team, you now believe that they're able and they will do something special at some point. As we saw in Australia, when like
Yeah, yeah,
Shardul Thakur and the Washington Sundar put together that amazing partnership. When Natarajan stepped in suddenly out of nowhere as a test bowler and did the job. Siraj stepped up and was the enforcer. And now these guys really believe that, what, I can do this. Like, whereas earlier it was the fear of failure that drove a lot of these young guys. Now it's just the other way around. Now it's this fire within that says, no, I can do this, and I can do this for myself, and the team also believes in me. So
Australia, you mentioned. Australia remained a kind of holy grail for Asian teams. It kind of
yeah,
remained the place where we just go, get beaten, come back,
yeah,
win the occasional one-day trophy. But then
right,
to go and win that first series, I know a lot of people said that Smith wasn't there, Warner wasn't there. But the second series, India was missing almost everybody. They were missing Kohli,
that's right,
they were
yeah,
missing their important bowlers, and nobody talked about that. And the fact that the games that they won and saved were not
hmm,
run-of-the-mill chases. They were 350 odd on the last day. You'd not back most teams to do it, and you thought to yourself,
yeah,
okay, India are going to be safe, they're going to go for the safer option. We know
yeah,
Pujara's class, we know he's a true successor to someone like Rahul Dravid. But even Dravid and
right,
Lakshman and Ganguly, for all their success in Australia, where they went and played very well, they wouldn't be able to cross
yeah,
that line. These are exceptional players. We
yeah,
all know Dravid, Lakshman, Ganguly, they're all exceptional. But even against Australia, in Australia, sometimes they would come short. This young
yeah.
lot
They
comes
faltered.
in.
Yeah,
This young lot came in and said, Acha, 350 on the last day, 3 wickets in hand, koi masla nahi hai. And like you said, there
forgettable.
was a fearlessness. They got it. The Australians were left shell shocked because I think somewhere in the back of their mind, they were also thinking it's India on the last day
They're not.
chasing
Yeah, they're not
350.
used to that
No, not on their own
from
turf.
anyone.
They're definitely from
Yeah,
anyone.
not on their own turf, and definitely not from Asian teams.
Definitely not from Asian teams. And so kind of like I've also wanted to get back to a point about Dhoni, that him and that Indian team were the first side that made chasing anything seem doable. India has always been a very strong chasing side. India have always
Right,
had that feeling that if India are batting, they can chase anything. But when they chased that 320 in 38 overs against Sri Lanka to make it to the Tri Series final, I think the penny dropped.
right.
And sort of
Yeah,
300, 350 400. I know South Africa did it against Australia, but they did it once. India was
Yeah.
consistently doing it. 350 wasn't big enough.
Yeah.
Then 370 wasn't
Yeah.
big enough. Dhoni could finish it, or Sehwag would get 100, or Dhawan comes out of nowhere.
Rohit Sharma would, or Rohit Sharma would hit a
Or Rohit
double
Sharma
100 or something. Yeah.
hit continuous double hundreds. And then you're
Yeah.
thinking to yourself, okay, Sehwag is gone. And if I'm not being unfair to Sehwag, exceptional player, but I think Rohit Sharma is edging him at the moment as a one-day opener, as a T20 opener, because Rohit Sharma is just getting the big scores again and again and again.
No, you're absolutely right. I don't think there's any shame in saying that Virender Sehwag was and will always be remembered, certainly in my books, as an immense Test player, because I think the reason he was so successful at Test matches was because he just got time. He just got the time to play his natural game. Whereas I think what worked against him in the shorter formats, because he wasn't. I mean, he was a great batsman in all formats, but not quite as successful in the shorter formats because I think he was too hurried, and that often worked against him. Rohit Sharma now is, I think he's already an all-time great as a short format player. There's no two ways about it. I don't think anyone's hit more sixes than him, if I'm not mistaken.
No, or more double hundreds
in ODIs. Yeah. So he's a machine in many ways, but he's also a beautiful machine, if you know what I mean.
Absolutely.
He's not cold to watch.
No.
And he has so much time. There's so much time that he has to play his strokes. It's unfortunate that he's that level of performance hasn't quite been repeated in Test matches, but whenever he's been, so I can only hope that they stick with him in Test matches as well, because he's a genuinely great performance.
His recent performances in Test cricket are as good as anything. Pablo, if we just go away from that for a minute and ask you as an Indian fan, because obviously it's like we talked about the love-hate relationship. You were telling me before it started that Wasim Akram was your favorite bowler. Who are the other Pakistani players in India? Who are the other players? I know people have had a love-hate relationship with Shahid Afridi based on some things that have been said recently, but he was very popular in India for a time too, and somehow seemed to save his best for India. And then Yunus Khan, I think Yunus Khan's claim to fame in Pakistan is that he performed against India, whether it was in India, whether it was away. And then, of course, Javed Mian. So growing up and watching so much cricket, who were the Pakistani players you thought, whether you want to say you loved them or you loved to hate them? Who were those players for you?
Well, growing up like I did, in my time when I began watching cricket, of course, it was Javed Mian, it was Imran Khan, it was Wasim Akram. Who else was there? There was Mudassar Nazar, people like that. In fact, I remember sending you photos of that autograph book that I have. I didn't get those autographs. It was got by another family member. But I just remember being transfixed by Imran Khan and his bowling action. I was very young at the time, but I was still old enough to sort of know my cricket reasonably well. And just that bowling action to me was the height of perfection for a fast bowler. It was just a beautiful thing to watch. I didn't really care whether he got a wicket with the ball or whether he got hit for six. Watching Imran Khan take that run up, that fantastic jump, the way he bent his back was just insane. So for me, it was definitely Imran Khan. And when Wasim Akram showed up on the scene, I still honestly, when I watch some of the videos of his heyday, I can't figure out how the laws of physics allow some of the things that he did. Killer ball that I think he bowled to Rahul Dravid in India, which I still cannot figure that ball out. I don't think Dravid can either.
No, because it pitched one place and went the other.
Yeah, went the other way. And but only Wasim Akram could do something like that, ball after ball.
Yeah.
And he bowled pretty much the same pace, whether it was off like 4 steps or whether it was his full run up. So I think he was, for me, he was the epitome of Pakistan cricket. He summed it up for me, because for all of us, for me and my friends at the time, Pakistani cricket meant fast bowling because we didn't have fast bowlers at the time. Kapil Dev was a great player, but he didn't have raw pace, and the rest
No, he
were,
was a swing bowler.
frankly, fast, medium, fast off spinners. So just to watch genuine pace at work was fantastic because you didn't get to see that among your own lot. And certainly when I was at school and when we were playing cricket, we all wanted to be Wasim Akram. Even like the right-handed kids would try and bowl like him. So, and then as the years wore on, of course, there were Shahid Afridi was very popular. There was extreme sort of love-hate relationship as far as he was concerned, for the reasons that you mentioned, but also for the fact that he was so entertaining. And whenever Pakistan would play anybody else other than us, me and a lot of friends would always vote, be rooting for Pakistan because they were such a good team to watch. So other players, I mean, like Umar Gul, he's a monster as a T20 bowler. I mean, I don't think he gets the due that
He doesn't.
that he deserves. Umar Gul, I remember the first season of IPL, my team, the Rajasthan Royals, had Sohail Tanveer, who was, I think, instrumental in winning at least 50% of the matches that the Rajasthan Royals won. I think in one match he took 6 for nothing. Yeah.
6 for, he had the orange cap. He hit the winning runs in the final.
That's right.
He had an exceptional tournament.
Absolutely. And I think certainly one of the reasons that I watched the IPL that year was to watch Indian and Pakistani players playing alongside each other, because that's the dream, right? I mean, fantasy of any sort of Desi cricket fan. You're always sitting and thinking about, Arey yaar, what if we'd been able to sort of put a joint team together, like nobody would ever be able to beat us, and just think of what we've been able to achieve.
I mean, if you look at it over the years,
I was just saying the IPL, for all it's done a lot of good things, but I mean, for all its faults, of which there are many, certainly the first couple of editions were great because you finally got to see something like that, which was Indian players and Pakistani players playing alongside each other and just having a good time. It was a respite from all of the politics and from all of the hate, which frankly just gets a bit much.
Yeah, because you and I were discussing earlier that the players seem to genuinely get along. I've never seen any single player from either side have any. I mean, they talk about when they go visit each other's countries, which is sadly not enough, how people bring them home cooked food. They talk about similarities in language and culture. Obviously, all the Punjabi boys on both sides have so much in common, but also
fine,
also a lot of the other guys you would see. And it was always great to see. People forget. I think people forget sometimes that Danish Kanaria, Pakistan's most well-known Hindu player, saved a lot of his best cricket for India. And then he would talk about how they would all mingle together. And then you would see Wasim Jafar scoring a double century against Pakistan. And, people talking about it and saying, look, this is a Muslim boy coming and doing all of this. So those things went out the window because at the end of the day, it was just Indians and Pakistanis playing for their teams. But when the game would finish, yes, we saw some aggro, but it's normal. I've seen more aggro when India has played Australia, for example. I think it's
everyone. Yeah, exactly.
India, and I've seen a lot of aggro when England play Pakistan. There seems to be much more needle. There's a lot of pressure in an India-Pakistan game. You mentioned a very important thing about seeing, players play together and how great it was, whether it was Rajasthan Royals, who had a lot of Pakistani players. Kamran Akmal was there, Yunus Khan was there.
And he did very well. They all did really well.
And they had a Pakistan heavy roster with them.
In that season was on fire. I mean, he was he's scoring very quick runs at the top of the order, and he was great to watch.
Yeah,
and he actually kept wicket reasonably well as well.
Yes, for Kamran Akmal, I think that was a career high. Keeping to Shane Warne because he couldn't keep to a lot of the other of our bowlers who are far lower than Warne after that.
Yeah.
So a question a lot of our young fans had was that do you think the Champions League return, a potential return for Champions League T20 and PSL teams taking on IPL teams, I mean, what a spectacle it would be, because it would be Indian and Pakistani teams. but it would be with foreign players. And in
Yeah.
the case of CSK
Correct.
or RCB, if RCB makes it that far, or in the case of course, Quetta Gladiators, it would be the best of Pakistan, the best of India, and the best from the world playing against each other.
Yeah.
It would be like watching India Pakistan, but with added quality to it.
It would be spectacular. Like, I would pay money to watch those games. And I hope it happens. I've been following, I was following until it was called off, a lot of the PSL games because just like you, um, you were saying that a lot of the players that showed up in Australia, for example, on our side, you didn't even know about. I mean, I just love the game, so I watch the PSL, I watch the T20 league in Bangladesh, I watch the Caribbean League because I want to see I want to see new players. And for me, Pakistan is always, I mean, I've always been fascinated by your country. In fact, and I think I've told you this, one of my abiding regrets is the fact that in 2004, I was all set to come to Pakistan on a Royal Enfield motorcycle tour, which coincided with the cricket tour, which was I think cricket was resuming after a long time, and I was also set until I discovered that my passport had less than 6 months validity left.
Oh God,
Visa,
that's gotta hurt.
and I couldn't get a new passport in time. So, unfortunately for me, fortunately for him, my boss ended up going. But I still regret that to this day, man. I mean, because when he came back, he had such stories to tell. I think they couldn't ride all the way in. They rode up to the border and then were taken in by train, went to Lahore. And I think they stayed there for a couple of days, watched one of the one-day games, which I think we won.
One
and
both
they
of
said
them.
the atmosphere was absolutely unbelievable. They were all sitting together, obviously wearing India jerseys, wearing Indian flags, surrounded by Pakistani fans. And they said it was amazing because although there was needle and there was all of that, but it was all in such good spirit that they said, my boss said that this is among the most incredible experiences of my life. I will never um, just the atmosphere and also the outpouring of like genuine love and affection that was shown to all of them. So I still regret that. I'm still like, damn it, I should have kept a better watch on my passport or whatever, because that would have been me. That could have been me.
No, that was
and I do hope that things are sorted out between our countries to the extent that
absolutely
sporting relations are reestablished, because you guys should be touring us, we should be touring you, your lot should be playing the IPL. I was watching the PSL, and the level of cricket is fantastic. It's just as good as the IPL. And in fact, if I'm not wrong, I think Dale Steyn recently said, although he had to sort of backtrack a bit on those words because there was a bit of a backlash, but he said that he preferred playing in the PSL over the IPL because he was beginning to think that the IPL has just become all about the money and the commercial aspects of it, and he just felt more at home in the PSL. Was more about the cricket. So I think for someone to, like Dale Steyn, to say that is quite something. And I wish I could just pop over the border and have a look at these matches, because they look of the highest possible quality. And there's several players that I saw for the first time who were like, wow, these guys are good. What is the name of that bowler again? That I forget his name. The chap from Sindh.
Shahnawaz Dahani.
That's right. He was really good.
Yeah.
It was. I mean, he was great to watch. Very pacey. He looks like he has potential, and it looks like a lot of people really love him, because I was watching videos of him, being sort of on some sort of open car parade or something when he was heading back to his hometown.
Going back to his hometown, and they put up a whole celebration for him. even someone like Hassan Ali, who comes from a small town, and when he played the Champions Trophy final and he came back and he said, my life is forever changed. And of course, he's married to an Indian girl. and
Oh, I
there's
didn't
so
know
much
that.
this. Yeah, he's married to an Indian girl. They live in Dubai. Shoaib Malik, of course, also married to an
Of
Indian
course.
girl.
Yeah.
And to an Indian legend. Sania Mirza
Right.
is so much more.
Yeah.
She's a super athlete. She's an ambassador. You mentioned the 2004 tour. I was there at the games, and I just remember, like you mentioned, there was a great outpouring of love. I was the last remaining Pakistani in the stadium when everybody had
Right.
left. And the people that I'd been sitting around with, they brought a big giant Indian flag and put it around me. But it was done in
Right.
love, and it was done in happiness. There was no malice.
Yeah.
There was no
Yeah.
aggro. We saw the
Yeah.
players mingling afterwards. I remember some gentlemen came to me. I think they were from South India, and they said, "Where can we find vegetarian food?" And I said, "Brother, in Lahore, it's going to be very, very difficult. But someone behind me heard them and said, you'll have it at my house, because there's no way I'm
Right.
letting you not have
Wow.
vegetarian." Now,
Right.
these people didn't know each other. And I know for a fact
Yeah.
that he said, "Come on in my car, or if you want, I'll bring
Huh.
it to your hotel." What do you mean no one's going to serve you vegetarian food? You're in Pakistan. Ye hamari
Right.
mehman nawazi ki khilaf hai ki we don't serve you. And people were happy. I made some friends, and I remember the little things. I remember in Lahore, we have a very famous saying about our police, right? Lahore police are a little bit hard on you. And literally all of us who were
Huh.
getting away with things were telling them we're from India. And they were like, okay, aap chale jaye. And we were laughing. "Yaar, this is brilliant." We were telling them we're Sardarjis, or we're telling them we're from Bombay. And they would let us go. And
Right.
the other Pakistanis at the back, we would get this lathi for, breaking rules or
Huh.
whatever. And even though we lost the game to VVS Laxman special, but there was this
Yeah.
amazing feeling of camaraderie. And then, of course, Pakistan toured India after that. That was
Yeah.
amazing. That tournament, the Bangalore test will stay with Pakistanis for the rest of their
Oh,
lives.
yeah. Yeah.
That one day
Yeah.
series will stay with Pakistanis. But we've seen, Pablo, in recent years, India have become what Australia used to be, that they're almost unbeatable at home. And I know people like to talk about wickets,
Yeah.
and I know people like to talk about conditions, but they're beating just about everybody. And they're beating them because, look, let's be honest, Rohit Sharma batted on the same wicket the English batsman batted on. He got 100.
Exactly.
They couldn't
Yeah.
make 100 between them. It's not just about the wicket. If one guy is getting
No, it's not.
150 plus,
Yeah. Absolutely.
there's skill to it too. On a seeming wicket,
Yeah.
why is it that on a seeming wicket, it's okay if a wicket is seeming? We had the opportunity to talk to the great Saklan Mushtaq, and he told us, why is a spinning wicket bad, but a seeming wicket is okay?
But it's,
That
a
doesn't make
green
sense.
top is fine. Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember when we toured New Zealand not so long ago, the wickets were, I mean, I think in the test matches that we played there, other than Sehwag, pretty much everybody got um,
Single
had
figures. Yeah.
barely crossed double digits. Yeah.
Yeah.
And those were to borrow a phrase from what these spinning wickets are, those were raging green tops. But
Yeah, raging green.
nobody complained about those, because they were fast bowlers. Or I mean, you're right. There I think there's a sort of deep set bias against Asian spin bowlers for some reason. It's very clear, for example, that the English have a problem against against good quality spin bowling.
Yeah.
They were playing on the same pitch as you said, as we were, and they couldn't figure us out. Um,
No.
so
And
honestly, instead of
they
complaining about the nature of the pitch, they should be producing better spinners in England, and
or better
beefing
batsmen.
up their yeah, both, better spinners, so that those spinners will be then begin bowling at their batsmen in county cricket, and then everybody will be sorted. So you're right. The nature of the pitch. I mean, yes, of course, India and Pakistan, and to an extent Sri Lanka, have always been known for preparing turning tracks. But why the hell not? Um,
Yeah.
I have to say that after the second test in Chennai, when like the wicket was turning square pretty much from day one, I had my reservations about that. I was like, this may be overdoing it a bit, but having said that, as you said, we batted on that same pitch as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's. I think at first, I think, to be entirely honest, I think I was being a little overcritical of that pitch, but after considered sort of thought, I've come around to the opinion that if green tops can be prepared elsewhere, then we should be able to do what we want with our wickets.
Of course, because
And that's what Test cricket is all about.
That's what touring a country is all about. If you're going to have uniform wickets everywhere,
Yeah.
that they're just the same, then why tour
Yeah.
anywhere? Why not just
Yeah.
play, pick one country and play all your cricket over there? That's if you're going to India and it's not going to. It's you're complaining about the heat for Desi players going to England in May when it's 5 degrees,
Yeah.
wearing 3 sweaters and
Exactly.
fielding in the
Yeah.
slips is not something they're
Yeah.
used to either. And the bounce in
Yeah.
Australia
So
and the
true.
bounce in South
Yeah.
Africa, it's not so simple.
Yeah.
And I remember Wasim Akram making a point that at least when you come to India and you come to Pakistan, you're as overseas cricketers, you're treated like royalty. You get the best of everything. And when you go to England, he said we're picking up our own bags, we're checking into hotels ourselves. We're not getting any of that kind of treatment. So what is it that you're complaining about? And Steve Waugh also mentioned that we were beaten before we went because we didn't have the stomach to put up a fight. We were looking for excuses almost from the minute that we got there. The food is too spicy. Well, the food is too bland for our lot when we travel. There's no easy availability of, or there never used to be easy availability of vegetarian food or halal food. I remember Venkatesh Prasad saying he ate nothing but eggs and chips on a 40-day tour of England because nobody was, making those things available for them. So it works both ways. A lot of young Pakistanis feel, Pablo, I don't know, maybe you can kind of burst the bubble here. A lot of young Pakistanis feel that as opposed to South Africa, England, New Zealand, and Australia, if India and Pakistan play each other in India, because of being an Asian team, somewhat more familiar with the conditions, they feel Pakistan probably has a better chance to win in India than a lot of other teams. Would you agree? Or do you think that no, where India have reached right now is not just to do with the wickets, it's also to do with the mentality and the skills that all the players are bringing in?
I think it's very much the latter. I think whoever were to tour our country now would have a hard time beating us. Having said that, um, I think the level of just the things that are at stake, and I don't need to sort of tell you that when India and Pakistan play each other, there's just much more at stake, and
much more.
The players feel that as well. They just get more of a buzz. It's we have to win this. We have to win this. So that's an interesting point that you make. I think the current Pakistan team, you have some fantastic bowlers. Batsmen, I think, in terms of, other than Babar Azam, I think we have the edge to be honest at this point. But I think with guys like Shaheen Afridi and Yasir Shah, and who's the young fast bowler, the young chap, the slingy guy, I forget his name, the 17-year-old who did
Naseem.
reasonably well in Australia.
Yes, Naseem.
So so I think it would be more of an even match. I think my instinct would be that your lot would actually raise their game, because that happens all the time. We've seen it happen. Whenever Pakistan has come here before, the level of competition has just gone up. So I actually haven't thought about it in the way that you described it, but I think you're right. I think that that Pakistan, especially, would have more of a chance of certainly going sort of toe to toe with us, as opposed to say a Sri Lanka or Bangladesh, because I think we would still beat Sri Lanka and Bangladesh quite handily.
You do every time,
but But as far as Pakistan is concerned, I think we may not have as much of an easy time, because principally because you guys have a pretty bowling attack.
Also, you mentioned the pressure. The pressure of India-Pakistan doesn't matter. I always say that even if it's a game of bantas or carom, India versus Pakistan is untold pressure. If you were to put you and I in some kind of jerseys and tell us, go and play a badminton game,
like
India-Pakistan
cricket or something.
I think I would put in 300% against India, as I would against anyone, simply because that's how you've just been raised. Your game has to be at the very best. You will lose. Someone has to lose, but the desire and the passion to not lose will be far greater than, say, getting beat by Australia or getting beat by. I think we have that block against Australia. We didn't beat them in anything for 20 years. All they had to do was show up till we played them on spinning tracks. And South Africa too. South Africa, wherever we played them, we kind of thought to ourselves, "Yaar, South Africa, acha, jeet jayenge." But with India, even when you're
Huh.
losing, you see that it means a lot. And so going on from that, as a fan, what's been your most favorite
Hmm.
India-Pakistan moment or India-Pakistan game? What's been the one that you look back at? Like, for example, if you were to ask me, I would say that Bangalore test against an
Right.
exceptional Indian side, Ganguly, Dravid, Sehwag, Tendulkar, to win that test after being 1-0 down in the series, having somehow saved a game in Chandigarh. It'll stay with me, just like the 99 series will stay with me. For you as a fan, what is it? Would you say it's the tour to Pakistan when you came and won a very difficult test series? You won a very difficult one-day series. Would it be one of the? It can't be a World Cup game because you beat us every time. It shouldn't be a World Cup game. वो तो हर दफा जीत जाते हो.
No,
But
no.
as a fan, what are the games that stay with you from India Pakistan?
I think in the recent past, most definitely the 2004 tour, because it was significant in so many ways. Cricketing relations were being restored after a long time. There's a lot riding on that. I was personally invested in it until, of course, I couldn't go. But
Yeah,
that aside, the fact that we did so well there, um, in both formats,
yeah, yeah.
the fact that watching Sehwag go out and just thrash the bowling left and right, triple century, all of that was amazing. Um, and the fact is that back then, beating Pakistan in Pakistan was not an easy task for
It was
anybody.
the first time. It was the first time India
Yeah,
had done it.
yeah, exactly. And so for us to have gone there and to have done it so comprehensively and
Yeah,
so fearlessly, because I watched every game on that tour, and in every match, it looked like these guys believed that they were going to win it. Like nowhere, even though we lost some games, it was writ large on their faces that we are here and we can do this. And they did it. And that was for us, for me as a fan, and for I think us as a nation, very refreshing to see, because on previous occasions when we had told Pakistan, we were always so cowed down. There
yeah,
was,
yeah.
I think we felt extra intimidated because of the pressure, because it was Pakistan, because frankly, for a lot of the time, you guys had a better team than us. So for us to finally go over there and play a very strong team,
Yeah,
it
yeah.
wasn't.
Very, very good team. Yeah.
It's not that you guys had a weak team at the time. I mean, you
No,
guys
no, no.
had your absolutely full strength squad. So for us to do what we did, I think was fantastic, and that in the recent past is a very sort of heartening memory. Um, Otherwise, of course, that Champions Trophy final that we lost, for me, of course, as an Indian fan, was heartbreak. But having said that, it was amazing to watch, especially to watch Muhammad Amir do what he did. I mean, he essentially won that game, I think, in the space of those few
Basically.
balls.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and it was a great game. Even as an Indian fan, just to watch your guys do what they did in such a sort of free flowing fashion and play fearlessly. That was like the Pakistan of old, if you know what I mean. I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
experience of um, what earlier Indian teams must have experienced time when they were playing Pakistan, because they were thinking that yaar, we may not be able to do this. हाँ, जीत सकते हैं लेकिन शायद हार जाएंगे. I think that used to be the attitude. But I think that switch that happened in 2004, a lot of that had to do with just the sheer force of personality that Dhoni had. Um, that was great to see, and as as you can see, that has since continued, and now it can be applied to, we tour Australia, we tour England, and we're fearless. So it's fantastic to see.
I think it's also fair to say that from the loss of that 2017 final, India actually went
Hmm.
from strength to strength. It
Yeah,
didn't
yeah,
kind of become a blemish. It became a one-off, and they treated it like a one-off
yeah,
because they won the Asia Cup, they reached the semi-finals of the
yeah,
World Cup. Their home form has been stellar. They've been the number one test team.
yeah,
They were the number one one-day team. Now, like you said, they're putting more attention on the shorter formats, and we're seeing the results. We're seeing,
yeah,
like we mentioned, these young players coming through. What is it you? I know for a fact that you watch PSL, you watch so much cricket closely. What is it you think Pakistan can learn from the IPL? We don't need to ape it, but there are obviously things to learn. One thing people have mentioned is that maybe we should have an auction system similar to the IPL. Do you think we have the quality of recruits, both domestic and international, to do that, or do you think the current system, where where things are going the way they are, is the way to go for Pakistan?
I think the auction system is a good way to go. Certainly, I think that the quality of players involved in would go up if there were to be that kind of system. Monetarily, of course, it's next to impossible to compete with the IPL and indeed the BCCI, just in terms of the just the vast
Absolutely.
resources that they have. But the idea, as you said, is not to ape the IPL. The idea is to, as with all good things, just take what you think works and try and adapt it to your own circumstances. Um, and I honestly see no reason from the quality of cricket that I've seen in that I was watching in the PSL. It was just as good as anything that I've seen in the IPL, if not better. Some of the games, there's um, it's T20 cricket at the end of the day,
Yeah.
and it lasts for as long as it does. So there's no reason that, as far as I'm concerned, that it shouldn't be sort of up there with the rest of the leagues in the world. Um, Now, the one thing that we just talked about earlier, which is that these young guys coming through, guys like Natarajan, Bumrah, Siraj, you know, the great thing about players like that who've barely played any first class cricket, by the way, is
Yeah.
that they're so adaptable. You mentioned the fact that had it not been for the IPL, you may not even have heard of Jasprit Bumrah. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
he may not have become a cricketer, but not only did he become a cricketer, he's an all-round bowler. He plays
Yeah.
every format, as
He's a
does
once in a
as
generation
does Mohammad
cricketer.
Siraj now. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. But as does Mohammad Siraj now, because he started off playing. Like he made his name in the IPL, was picked for the Test squad, has played some, I think, some T20s for India as well. A guy like Natarajan, who essentially is a T20 specialist, is known for bowling 6 Yorkers in an over, was picked for the Test team in the Test squad and did really well. So
Yeah.
these guys are not just skilled, but they're very adaptable. And I think that quality is something that any cricketer can learn, which is that don't be a one-trick pony. It's easier said than done, of course, for guys like you and me to be sitting in our armchairs and sort of and saying, "Okay, don't be a one-trick pony. Ye seekho, wo bhi seekho, ye karo, wo karo." But having said that, it's the truth, right? Because the more adaptable you are, the more successful you're going to be. It's not rocket science, and I'm not obviously fully aware of how your domestic cricket setup is. Although now, congratulations, I hear that you're part of it, and I hope that
Thank
you will do as much as you can for the domestic setup there. But I imagine that it's reasonably good, because there are more than reasonably good players in the PSL at the moment, and they are coming through a system of some sort. And obviously, there's a lot of natural talent in Pakistani cricket, as there always has been. Um, it just seems to be a question now of, like, for example, I know that the Indian men's team has the best support staff pretty much in the world. They hire the
Yeah.
best,
Definitely.
and that makes a big difference. I don't know whether that happens in Pakistan or not. For example,
Not
there
comparatively.
appears
No.
to
No.
be, yeah. So, and these are fairly simple things that should be adapted fairly quickly, right? Um, and of course, there's all the one is always reading about sort of of politics, like chairman resigning and this one accusing this one of corruption and whatever. Of
Yeah. Yeah.
course, our own board went through a really bad time, and justifiably, not so long ago. But I think for all the BCCI's um, sort of big brother and frankly at various junctures bullying nature, what they've done is made very sure that look, we are going to be the best Indian cricket. We are going to be the best cricket team in the world, and we are going to do what it takes in terms of spending that money to make it happen. And I don't think it necessarily needs billions of dollars to do that. It can be done with on a smaller budget. And I assume that that's something that that should be put into place in Pakistan as well. Just as a layperson, I mean, who am I to sort of be sounding off on
but
these things?
but your point is that the pathway should be more clear. There should be a plan in
Yeah,
place. There should be
I mean, you have to
a
have
more
a,
clear idea.
exactly. There has to be like a 5-year plan, for example.
Yeah, yeah,
It can't be that the executives in the board change and then the whole plan changes.
yeah,
That's what I mean. Let's leave that to the governments, right?
yeah, yeah,
At least let the cricket board
yeah.
have a better sort of idea of what to do over the next 5 years.
Yeah, yeah. Just follow the plan, irrespective of what's happening.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. Another very important question we're being constantly asked to check with you is that on social media now, we know you're very big on social media also. There's this big debate. Is Rizwan the more informed keeper right now, or is Rishabh Pant the more informed keeper? Because when you look at their performances in recent times in
Oh,
Test cricket, in
this is a
T20
tough one.
cricket, these guys have changed the perception of the Asian wicketkeeper batsman. Yes, Dhoni
Yeah.
did it for a very long time. But I will say the only question mark, and I don't think Dhoni will care two hoots, was at times about Dhoni as a test cricketer. I think in white ball cricket, there's no denying that he was as good as it gets. But Pant has come in test cricket in Australia, the way he's played. Rizwan has come in after, not getting a look in, and he's just bashing in the runs as an opener, as a wicketkeeper. Pant is doing it. Have India and Pakistan had more informed keepers at the same time?
No,
Like
never.
we have
I don't
seen
think.
these
Yeah.
guys before, because if we had Moin Khan,
At
you had
least.
Kiran More,
Yeah. Yeah.
or you had
Yeah.
Nayan Mongia, we had Rashid Latif, and when you had
Huh.
Dhoni, frankly speaking, we weren't even in the frame.
You went through a
When you
whole
had
bunch of
Dhoni,
them. Yeah.
we went
Yeah.
through 200 of them, and most of them were the same.
Yeah.
But suddenly,
Yeah.
Sarfaraz came and did very well. Now Rizwan is upped his game, Pant is upped his game. These two right now are easily the most exciting wicketkeeper batsmen in all formats. That's the other thing to add. Pant is doing it in all formats.
Yeah.
It's Test cricket. He's playing ramp shots for 6 of Jimmy Anderson, making him look like a medium pacer. And Rizwan is hitting hundreds against South Africa. I don't think most of our batsmen have hundreds against South Africa, leave alone our wicketkeeper. So between these two, this debate is suddenly cropped up. What I mean, okay, forget comparing them, but have we ever had two such informed wicketkeeper batsmen at the same time, both of us? Because this would add to any game that we play. You always had Dhoni, or we had.
Yeah.
I mean, the best I can say we had was Moin. Maybe we had Moin at the time when you didn't have others, or we had Wasim Bari and Saeed Kirmani back in the day. But these two right now are the most informed keepers in the world.
They are, absolutely. And this is even without taking into consideration that Ishan Kishan is a keeper batsman. He hasn't been called upon to keep internationally as yet. So yes, in terms of wicket keeping riches, we are certainly doing well. See, I am in that sense slightly old fashioned. I used to be a keeper, and I have to put up my hand and say that for the longest time, I didn't think that Pant deserved to be in the Test team because he wasn't as good a keeper as Saha. For me, Shah currently is probably the best, alongside Ben Foakes. I think Ben Foakes and Shah are the best wicketkeepers, pure wicketkeepers in the world right now, bar none. And just watching them at work is just beautiful for me. So I have to say that I was slightly sort of colored against Pant for a while, because I was like, what is he doing in terms of of his keeping technique? But I'm very happy to say that I've had to eat crow in that regard, because Pant has clearly upped his game. I think it's just the sheer force of his nature, because he's an extremely confident young guy, and obviously the team has backed him no matter what. So that's sure, because when you know that people are supporting you and that you've been given a long rope, then I think you take it upon yourself to up your game naturally, and that's showing in his keeping. Because I mean, he's pulled off some stunners keeping on the pitches here. And I remember asking you, in fact, what was this? This was a few series ago when I asked you, hey, who's this young chap, Rizwan? Because he looks fantastic. Um, and obviously, I've been watching him since. So I think it was the tour that you guys did of England during the lockdown. In fact,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
wasn't in that the first time he toured, and
yeah.
I was blown away by the level of his keeping because he was so good. So I don't know. I mean, this is a tough one, but I'm going to have to say that that Rizwan is definitely the better wicketkeeper than Pant. Um, but as batsmen, they're just amazing in their own rights. And just wicket keeping riches, we've got Ishan Kishan, we've got Pant, we've got Shah, um, we've got KL Rahul, who can also, be a decent T20 keeper, and as you know, he's a fantastic batsman. You guys
He's an
have
exceptional
Rizwan,
player.
you've got Sarfaraz,
Yeah.
who's very good. I'm assuming there are other young chaps,
There is a
who
there is
are
an
who are
exceptional young boy coming through called Rohel Nazir, who was with Multan
right.
Sultans also. Again, because he's seeing Rizwan, because he's seeing Sarfaraz, it's getting young guys to come up, and of course the riches are coming because it's amazing how often people will not mention Dinesh Karthik, who's played so much of his career as a non-keeper, but was
Yeah,
such an
yeah,
exceptional keeper in
yeah,
limited overs games, and his fielding was also
yeah,
exceptional. And what he did to Bangladesh,
yeah.
I think, I know they don't like us in Bangladesh, but he should be right up there with what he did to
He-
them because he also
yeah.
was a fearless batsman. And like you said, the riches
Mm,
now are, and of course, and in Dhoni's time, Saha, like you mentioned, an exceptional pure keeper. As simply judging him as a wicket keeper, he has his technique is second
yeah,
to none,
yeah,
and the way he's played on such difficult wickets. And I don't think there's a lot of countries, like you said, Ben Foakes doesn't get a lot of games because they play Joss Butler. But I don't think at the
yeah.
moment, maybe New Zealand have that amount of riches in wicket keeping, but a lot of other countries are just picking batsmen, hoping
Yeah,
they can keep. I'm with you. I think a
pretty
wicket
much.
keeper
Yeah,
needs to be a wicket keeper because
yeah,
it's a specialized position.
absolutely.
It's like being a goal. It's like being a goalkeeper. It's a specialized position, and
Yeah,
we've seen Pakistan when we've experimented with making batsmen keep. Just because one guy was called Akmal, we gave Umar Akmal the gloves, and we ruined both his batting
yeah,
and his keeping because he's not a
and his
keeper.
keeping. Yeah,
Yeah, and
yeah.
it wasn't fair. And then so I'll come up to another thing a lot of people want to ask because obviously your knowledge of the game is very good. Do you think there are similarities between Fawad Alam and Wasim Jafar? Because Wasim's prime came at a time when India had an untouchable batting lineup. You had Sachin, Dravid,
Yeah.
Ganguly, Lakshman, Sehwag. The riches. I mean, when you talk about each of them as an individual, they go as legends. But when you talk
Yeah,
about them as a group, as a batting lineup,
as a
and Wasim
team. Yeah.
Jafar had a few chances,
Excuse me.
but his domestic record is exceptional, just like Fawad's. Do you think there are similarities? Because a lot of the reasons people felt for not selecting Fawad was because we had Azhar, we had Misbah, Yunus.
Yeah,
These are three of our all-time greats, and then of course Shafiq in Test cricket also. Talking purely
yeah.
from a Test point of view, do you think, considering his domestic exploits, Jafar was the Fawad Alam of India? Was he unlucky, or do you think at the international level, when he did get a chance, he didn't actually go on to be as good as he could have been?
Again, a very interesting point. I think the facts are that the chances that Wasim Jafar got, um, I think even he would probably admit that he didn't make as good use of them as he might have, given the immense talent that he had at the time. I mean, he's a domestic cricket king,
Yeah, yeah,
um, and you know, so in a sense, you're right. Yes, I would say that there are similarities between Wasim Jafar and Fawad Alam, other than their batting stances, of course. Um,
of course.
but I mean, yeah, seriously, what is that stance? I'm still trying to figure out how he does what he does with that stance. Anyway, um,
It's
but
amazing because it works. It
yeah,
works for
so
him.
yeah, whatever works for you, right? So
Yeah,
it's fine.
yeah.
Whatever, uh, whatever works for him. But yes, uh, I think it's fair to say that the two are quite similar, um, and it's also, I think, fair to say that Wasim Jafar could have done a lot better than he did. I mean, again, who am I to say? I wasn't
But
out
you're
there
just
sort of
talking.
facing the best bowlers in the world, trying, opening the innings at a time when it was very difficult to open in the innings, and there weren't. The other thing that I think is a point to make is that at the time Wasim Jafar was playing, our opening combination wasn't that strong. We were experimenting with different players. A lot of players came and went, and none of them stuck around for that long. So yeah, I think it's unfortunate that Wasim Bhai didn't do as well as he should have, because I was always a big fan of his. I'm an old school guy. Pujara is one of my favorite cricketers. Hanuma
Brilliant player.
Vihari has become one of my favorite cricketers, just
Yeah.
for the fact that, I mean, he just gritted his teeth and took those body blows and saved that game. There aren't that many cricketers. They don't make them like that anymore.
No, no,
There's
not
very few of
anymore.
those
No.
guys. Yeah,
In fact,
so it's it's actually nice to see guys like Fawad Alam and back in the day Wasim Jafar and Pujara, guys like that, because it's heartening. It's um, it shows you that there's room for everyone in that sense. Not just a slam bang dasher. There's everybody has a role to play.
in fact, for
I'm
you
glad
guys,
that,
I would say,
I'm sorry. I was just going to say that I'm
yeah,
glad that Fawad is back in the team, because clearly he adds a lot to it.
he does, and it's a
And it
testament to his
seems
hard work.
unbelievable that he was that he was
10,
left out
10
for so long.
years, 10
Yeah, I mean,
years,
that's incredible. Yeah,
almost 11 years. And I know it's used for the fact that we had Misbah, who was obviously brilliant for Pakistan. We have had Azhar, who
yeah,
has been one of
yeah,
our best in recent times. We have had Yunus Khan, who's easily our best batsman by far, and Shafiq
yeah,
also. I think
yeah.
Fawad would have added to that batting lineup rather than a lot of people feeling he
Absolutely.
wouldn't
Yeah,
have. But
yeah,
but it's great to see that he doesn't have any rancor, he doesn't have any regrets. He's just focused on doing his best for Pakistan. He loves every chance he gets. He's a wonderful guy. So he holds no animosity. He's just happy to be playing for his country. It's great to see. I was going to say, you guys had was it Karan Nair who made a triple hundred
Karun.
and
Yeah,
then didn't
yeah.
get. Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
I mean, imagine making in Pakistan,
Poor
if you
chap.
make a triple hundred, you're done for 30 tests. You're not getting dropped.
Yeah,
To
at
make a
least. Yeah,
300 and make a 300 and probably not play again. It's an amazing thing. So it just goes to show the talent that India has and the talent that, of course,
yeah,
India has had. I was lucky enough, I'm just a little younger than you, even though I look much older. And we were watching. I got to see Indian first class cricket at a time when you had Amul Muzamdar, you had
yeah,
Vikram Rathore. These guys were
yeah,
powerhouses.
yeah,
But yeah, they struggled
yeah,
when you took them to England, took them to alien
yeah,
conditions. Now the conditions maybe don't play as much of a role because the younger guys are more aware, or they're going out there and they're playing cricket. Or like you said, they're playing with international players. They're learning from the
yeah,
best, learning from Ricky Ponting, learning from Stephen Fleming, learning from Tom Moody and Shane Bond, the support
yeah,
staff around them. It's become a very mental game, something that you always felt. I felt the first change in our region came not when India won the World Cup or Pakistan won the World Cup, but when Sri Lanka won the World Cup, because they brought out the pinch hitting, they brought out the
yeah.
stifling by spin, and then they
Jayasuriya and
improved their
Palavitarana. Yeah, absolutely.
and then the
Yeah,
fielding, and then we saw India's fielding. There was a
yeah,
time between us, I think we were the most comical fielders. Pakistan still
yeah. We
holding
couldn't
on to
save a
that
run.
at times.
Yeah,
But now I look at the Indian fielding, and I don't think their guys could now get into the Indian team if their fielding isn't of an exceptional standard, because it seems to be almost a given when your captain is so obsessed with the fielding. And now you're seeing Indian
yeah,
players taking exceptional catches. The diets have improved,
yeah,
the mindset is
yeah,
improved, and as it should be for the world's largest, most important, richest cricketing nation. I don't think we should kind of have that idea in this region anymore that talent pe kaam chal jayega. We do need to understand. I mean, Virat Kohli is an example to young people because of the hard work he puts in. He's got exceptional talent. But without that hard work, I can only imagine, as a Punjabi, he said he's not had an aloo paratha in 4 years. That's the ultimate
yeah.
sacrifice. I
Which
don't think I
is,
could
yeah,
go.
absolutely. Yeah,
I mean, for me, 4 days without an aloo paratha is going to be the biggest sacrifice of my life. So you have to make those sacrifices.
yeah,
And we see our younger players, how they're talking about doing yoga, they're talking about those mental, because that's the only, we've always had the talent. But I think the other regions,
yeah,
especially the Antipodeans, if you look at Australia, New Zealand, New Zealand is
Yeah.
beating people simply. I mean, they probably have a less of an entire population than Bombay. They definitely have fewer people in their country than Lahore. I'm sure of that. Yet
Right. Yeah.
they're world beaters because of their
Yeah.
attitude. And it's cricket is not even their favorite game. It's rugby. The best players will play rugby, and then the ones who aren't
Yeah.
playing rugby, it's like Indian footballers or Indian other sports. We always say in Pakistan,
Yeah.
people playing other sports are the ones who couldn't make it to cricket because
Couldn't make
it's
it.
just the
Yeah.
it's the only thing.
Yeah.
So it's great to know and to learn all of this, and it's been such a privilege. It's such a pleasure. I could go on talking to you for hours. I think we could have a 20, 30, 40
I'd be
episode
happy to.
series because
I'd
I
be
don't
happy
it's
to.
just so nice to talk to you, because also it's important, I feel very important, and I know you think this too. Yes, there's a lot going on, and there's a lot talked about the
As there
past or
always has
whatever.
been.
And I think we kind of, especially as fans, sometimes on social media, it really upsets me when I see both sides. It's a game at the end of the day. Talking
Yeah.
about
At the end of the
someone's
day,
family
nobody died.
or talking
Yeah.
about someone's faith is really uncalled for. And also, I think, like you very rightly said, when Pakistani fans have gone to India or Indian fans have come here, we've seen the closeness, the similarity. I think we need to focus on those things now. The
Yeah.
shared love for the game, whether we like it or we don't, we're stuck. We're neighbors. It's not like we can get up and go
Yeah.
somewhere, or you
Exactly.
can get up
Yeah.
and go anywhere else. And we have a shared history. We have a shared past. We have a shared culture. We have so many things we like. What's so many times I see Pakistanis and they're like, when we're traveling, we find an Indian restaurant, we're over the moon because dal mil
Yeah.
jayegi, bhujia mil jayegi. Or Indians are saying, yeah, we go to places and we'll find a Pakistani and he'll be like, don't worry, I'll make sure you get the proper vegetarian food. Those things come from the heart, irrespective of what someone is
Absolutely.
thinking. You don't
And a lot of
you don't
those
have
times,
to.
if you head to those restaurants, like there's a good chance that that meal will be free as well.
Yeah,
As I
because it comes from the heart, right? It's so much
Yeah.
easier.
Yeah.
We're not, with the greatest of respect to them, we're not Armenia and Azerbaijan that we don't want to talk to each other, or we're not
Yeah.
these places. We like talking to each other. At least samajh to aati hai na. You run into someone, and look at us
Exactly.
in
Yeah.
the Gulf. Look at us in the Gulf. Look at us in England. Look at us now in Australia with such growing Asian populations. We get along because
Yeah.
we can talk to each
Precisely. I
other. We
went to
can.
university. Yeah, I went to university in Australia, and I had several very good Pakistani friends. We played cricket together, we cooked together, we all stayed in the same residence together. So it was great.
Yeah, because there is a
It was fantastic.
familiarity, and yes, we should use cricket for what it is. It's a great opportunity to watch two teams slug it out. The bragging rights are always there. It's always fun, but we
Yep.
should leave the rancor or any kind of ill will off the cricket pitch and off it otherwise. I'm sure whoever's watching in India or Pakistan, I'm sure they have many reasons. But I think it's about time all of us, your and my friendship, so many other friendships, a clear example that we can use things that we have a great love for and similarity with to learn more about. I can't wait to have you over to Pakistan
Absolutely.
because you know your food, you know your cars. I mean, the Pakistanis here will go crazy when they have to get a chance to talk to you about cars or music or food, or when we go over to India and talk about all those things. We look at the history and all of that. And that's one thing I want to say to anybody and everybody who will watch this from both our countries and the diasporas. That, guys, let's remember that there's so much we have to be happy for and grateful for and lucky for. And
Yeah.
let's remember,
Thankful
whether we
for.
like it or not, we're neighbors. ठीक है ना? फंसे हुए हैं, वो भी फंसे हुए हैं, हम भी फंसे हुए हैं, हम
Yeah. You
पड़ोसी
got to figure it out.
पड़ोसी
Yeah.
पड़ोसी हैं और वो तो रहेगा वहां पे. So let's figure it out. Let's
Right.
be
हाँ जी,
nicer to each
बिल्कुल.
other. Let's be kinder to each other. Let's keep the anger for the cricket games. Like every World Cup, I know mayusi hogi, disappointment hogi because you guys are going to win it. The day
हाँ.
we do somehow beat you in the World Cup, मैं तो नहीं चुपूंगा. But that's it. That'll be that day. It's not going to be any sort of anger or anything like that afterwards. And we should really. It's great. I mean, I feel so happy and privileged to talk to you today about cricket, about culture, about all these things. It's been wonderful having you on. And
It's been
honestly,
lovely.
I could go on
Absolutely.
for another 3, 4, 5 hours. There's so much to talk about. And
I would be happy
you
to.
know, the
This
invitation is
ball that I
always
have in
there.
my hand, by the way,
Yeah,
sorry. This ball that I have in my hand was given to me by the great Bishan Singh Bedi. I've
a legend,
told you about
a
this ball.
legend of the game. Yes, yes.
It had an autograph on it, but like all good Desis, he autographed it with a ballpoint pen, and
Of
so
course.
therefore that has disappeared. but this
Yeah.
is indeed that ball.
No, my brothers and I got a bat with Imran Khan Saab's signature when we raised money for the cancer hospital. And like all good desis, instead of keeping it, we played cricket with it and broke it. And my mother couldn't believe it. She said it's an autographed bat, but we said it's a bat. Bat khelne ke liye hota hai, you know. Even when you don't give us bats, we'll hold on to anything and
Correct.
figure out ping pong ball and those things that those are similarities.
Yeah.
In fact, I would say if we look at the region, across Pakistan and India, we have so many things that differentiate us, but the things that unite us are food,
Yeah.
Cinema, music, and above all, cricket. So I think we need to try and use this and
Cricket.
hopefully usher in a new era of peace. And I can't wait for you to visit Pakistan. I hope when things are better, I'll check your passport myself to make sure you have more than 6 months, and then
Yes.
we'll get
Send me a reminder.
we'll get
so
you.
That,
Yeah, I will.
there's
And
not a repeat of
we'll
2000 and
no,
so.
no, absolute. No. This time we won't. Hopefully, God willing, you're coming here when the Indian cricket team is touring here. It would just be exceptional to watch the two sides play at home with each other. To see Kohli in Karachi, to see Pujara saving a Test match. I hope he doesn't save it, but to see him saving it in Lahore, for Peshawar to get to see India and Pakistan playing cricket. Rahul Bhattacharya's book was a great example. He couldn't believe. I remember he was mentioning in his book a couple of the journalists were vegetarians. Peshawar is not a safe place for anybody who's a vegetarian. I have a mother from Peshawar.
Right.
I can tell you it's very scary. So all of these things, and I'd love to go and see a game at Eden Gardens or go and see to see the I know the Wankhede is there, but was it the Brabourne Stadium, the older one in Mumbai? Yeah,
the older one
to
is the
see
Brabourne.
To see that or Pakistan's amazing, win. We were talking to Saklan Mushtaq ji about Chennai. That game, Sachin Tendulkar's knock is a knock for the ages. So all of those things, they bind us together, they bind us closer. So Pablo ji, thank you so much for taking out the time. It's always a privilege, it's a pleasure, it's an honor. Thank you for being on and talking to us. It's made it so very special.
Not at all. Thank you very much for having me. I would love to do this again if you ever want to. Always good to talk to like-minded people. Always good. More than anything else, always good to talk to friends.
Thank you so much, and we can't wait to have you in Pakistan, and hopefully we'll get that all sorted out very soon. Thank you so much.
Likewise, that there's a home here for you if you ever decide to come to Goa.
I can't wait. The minute they let me, that's the first thing I'm going to be doing. Taking advantage of some technicalities and going to Goa where they don't let a lot of Pakistanis go. I think you guys need more Pakistanis to visit Goa also. We lighten up places wherever we end up going. That's what we're always doing.
Yeah, it's multicultural here, so yeah, it would be perfect.
It looks beautiful. It looks absolutely stunning, and it's a pleasure. Thank you so much, Pablo ji.
Not at all.